Hey guys, welcome back to the Bulwark YouTube. I'm Sam Stein, managing editor. I'm here with our resident weatherman now, twice, although we're not talking about drones this time, unfortunately. Senior meteorologist at the MyRadar weather app, Matthew Cappucci. Matt, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it. We're going to be talking about the Palisades fire. Today, it's devastating. We woke up to horrific video footage. But really, this is three fires, right? Or maybe even more. Can you tell us what the latest is and why it happened and spread so rapidly?
Yeah, so we have the Palisades fire at about 3,000-ish acres. Then we have the Eaton fire at roughly 2,300 acres. And then a new one in the northern part of the San Fernando Valley has just cropped up, is rapidly expanding right now. It's over, I think, 500 acres. Realistically, this is kind of the worst case scenario you can possibly get in the Los Angeles metro area in terms of the combination of offshore winds, very strong winds, the worst we've seen since 2011 in that area, of very dry conditions and antecedent dryness. You know, it's been so dry for so long that the fuels in the ground, the vegetation is ripe to burn. You know, typically this time of year, we see rains. It is the rainy season in Los Angeles, but they haven't seen much lately. So for that reason, the fire season has extended all the way into the new year, which is very unusual. To get that going into January or February is extremely atypical, very problematic, as you can obviously see right now, and things will get worse before they get better. One thing that is sort of classic with this is that we have high pressure, so clockwise spinning high pressure off to the north, pushing dry air from, say, near Las Vegas, southern Nevada, down the San Gabriel Mountains and down the Santa Ana Mountains. So not only is this air squeezed over the top where it gets kind of a turbo boost, but it cascades downhill where it heats up and dries out. So you have hot, dry air pouring down into the valleys at highway speeds. It's no surprise we're seeing such serious issues.
Yeah, talk about the highway speeds. So winds were calculated at like 80 miles per hour, give or take. I mean, I know what it is. You know what it is. A car going on a highway at 80 is speeding, but like, can you sort of quantify or at least describe just exactly how problematic that is?
Yeah, you know, we're used to getting winds that strong in the mountains. I think what is really surprising this time, and not even surprising, but just to stand out, is that we're getting that in sort of the lower elevations too, down to like 1,100, 1,200 feet. Burbank, California got a gust to 81 miles per hour. Their previous record at that site was 67. So they've never seen winds this strong, even with the last round of really bad winds back in 2011. If we're trying to picture what winds of 80 miles per hour are like, that's a category 1 hurricane. So imagine a strong tropical storm or low end hurricane, but oh wait, it's hot and dry and you have wildfires. So it's no surprise these fires are spreading. If you want to visualize 70, 80 mile an hour winds, stick your head out the window when you're driving, safely, of course. And that's exactly what it feels like, that air just buffeting at you at 80 miles an hour. And so we're fanning the flames, we're getting extreme fire behavior. And remember, fires feed off oxygen. And so not only do the winds fan the flames, but they also feed the flames too. Right. So that's another issue that we're facing. And really, it's just such a historic event ongoing right now.
And what I've seen, and I come at this with very little expertise, but the smoke plumes that are being caused by both the flames and then the wind spreading across has made it seems even more difficult to both evacuate because it's really hard to see and to combat the fire, obviously, because it's difficult to go aerially in terms of putting the fire out. Talk a bit about the smoke plumes and the role that they play in this crisis.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. The visibility issue for people trying to evacuate is so serious that many folks have actually abandoned their cars. We saw that back in 2018 with the Paradise, California wildfires. The fact that this time around they had to do that in the Los Angeles metro area is quite striking, to the point that in order to get fire officials in, they had to bulldoze some of the cars off the roadway. We always tell folks, if you do wind up in a situation where you have to abandon your vehicle, pull it over and leave the keys in the vehicle, just in case down the road there's some opportunity for someone to move that vehicle and leave a path of egress. But you're exactly right about the smoke plumes too. They're up to about 15, 20,000 feet right now. So picture a plume of hot air and smoke ascending to about halfway the height that commercial aircraft fly. That's amazing and concerning to begin with. But we're seeing the smoke plumes that are so dense on weather radar. They look like thunderstorms. They look like showers because there's so much particulate matter in the atmosphere that the radar beam is bouncing off of. One other piece of the puzzle too, you know, the smoke isn't just inconvenient. The smoke is dangerous. It's toxic.
Right.
All these building materials, goodness knows what they contain, are being essentially broken into little bits and lofted to the point now where the Los Angeles metro has the worst air quality of any place in the Western Hemisphere. It rivals what we see during peak manufacturing times in India or China, and we're getting that over the second biggest and most populous city in the United States.
I want to show part of a video that you posted yourself, which kind of gives a sense of what people are confronting. This is the backstory. I don't really know, but this involves some man and his frightened dog in their home as smoke and flames engulf everything around it. Jamie, if we could play it. Oh, no worries.
Hi. Just be okay. You're gonna be okay. Hi. You're gonna be okay. Oh shit. Yeah, don't worry about that, dude. Look at that. Holy shit.
Okay, so first of all, it's fucking terrifying. Secondly, what do you do in I don't even know what I would do in a situation like that. I guess in theory, he should have potentially evacuated before I got to that point. But like, just talk. I mean, what is it? What do you do in a situation like that where it's fire literally surrounding you, smoke everywhere? You have your dog. I mean, how are you supposed to handle that?
My job is always to sort of know what to do, to give advice during natural disasters, to
Right.
sort of be a voice of reason. And with this time around, I got nothing. I can't imagine being in a situation like that. Theoretically speaking, if you had, a fireproof room in the basement with an oxygen supply, you could wait for the fire front to move through. I'm almost wondering if down the road, it's worth people, if they rebuild there, if they, settle in that part of the world, to have a fire shelter reminiscent of people in Tornado Alley having tornado shelters.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I was just reading something where it's like someone had this quote. They said, American homes were built for an environment that no longer exists. And basically the idea was, well, this area has been hit routinely by these fires. Obviously, each one seems to be a little bit more extreme than the last. But these homes were built, 80, 100 years ago. They're not meant for these incredibly devastating wildfires. They don't have these shelters in place. I mean, are we just going to have to rethink home construction among a million other things in this modern environment?
I think you're absolutely right. We built sort of we built to be lucky. We haven't built to be smart. So many cases in the United States are prevalent where the infrastructure just isn't built for what we need it to be, whether that means at the coastline building for stronger hurricanes in the future, whether that means, if you live near a floodplain, building for a flood that in the past may have happened every 100 years, now might happen every 30 years on average, or in California, building roadways that allow more people to evacuate during wildfires, building shelters and homes. These are all things that should be part of the conversation in the future. We're very reactive as a society, but not overly proactive. One thing I'll note then, Southern California, and I don't say this to be crass, I say this realistically. Southern California is meant to burn. That is a staple of the ecosystem. It happens every so often. The environment there, it's always a tinderbox. The issue is that we're settling so densely. The neighborhoods are so clumped together that once a fire starts, it quite literally spreads like wildfire. And forest management is one thing, but also building, whether it be natural breaks for wildfires or building a little bit more sparsely populated, having little strips of nothingness in between different neighborhoods. Civil engineering will have to play a role too. How can we design communities that are more resilient?
And then of course the debate right now is water scarcity, the ability to actually have the public resources to put out fires like this because they happen. And they're going to happen more and more. And then, of course, obviously the issue of climate change, which you alluded to earlier, drier climates, less rain, combined with the densely populated communities, and then you get a tinderbox, so to speak. So, is that basically we're just kind of sticking our heads in the sand and hoping for the best? Should and could have the cities plan more for water preservation, or is this just because climate is the way it is and because it's so dry, because there's no rain, this is what we're going to deal with?
It's probably like two or three different things. If you live in Southern California, unfortunately, you are rolling the dice. It's just like if you live in Florida, you're rolling the dice for a hurricane. It sounds insensitive to say, but realistically, everybody has innately some level of risk they're comfortable with. If you live in Oklahoma, you understand that tornadoes are a part of life there, and you hope that in your lifetime it doesn't impact you. Maybe 1 out of every 20 people there has been hit directly by a tornado and lost their house. Those are odds that people there sort of have to stomach every day. Same thing in Florida with hurricanes. In California, same thing there. The issue is that you're exactly right. The scale is sort of tipping more towards disaster being more likely in people's lifetime, especially with the patterns of sort of longer stretches that are either very wet or very dry. And once California gets into one of these very dry stretches, it just desiccates the landscape and makes it so ripe to burn. We normally see the rainy season kick in by November, December, even in Southern California. That just hasn't happened yet. So the winds are usually the strongest in January, but by then the rain comes in. It's not so much of an issue. This time around, we got the winds that we normally get, but we didn't get the rain. And that's why it's such a big problem right now. But yeah, I mean, societally, I think from a government standpoint, I don't think folks were as ready as they could have been. I don't think individuals were as ready as they could have been. If I lived there, I'd have a go bag all the time. It's just like, every spring in Oklahoma, people clean out their tornado shelters, they dust off the cobwebs, and they get ready to, if need be, go down in them. I think if you live in Southern California, especially if you live right now in the Los Angeles metro, I'd have your bag packed and ready to go, and I'd have the car gassed up and ready to go just in case. It's sort of a part of life that's becoming more prevalent and more scary. And one thing to note, too, as part of the conversation, the first place we can always look to see if our risk is changing is Wall Street and is the insurance companies. And so many insurers are pulling out of California, are pulling out of Florida as risk increases. And I think that's the writing in the wall that we sort of have to live with.
Yeah, and insurance rates are through the roof. Matthew Cappucci, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. It's more fun to talk about drones and weird conspiracies than devastation like this, but glad for your insights. And thank you guys for listening. Please do subscribe to the feed. We will talk to you soon.